Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhueva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavyo namo namah. समस्त वैष्णववृंद की जय. नामाचार्य दास ठाकुर जी की जय. श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. Good morning, dear devotees. I welcome you all to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. For this mid-morning session, please forgive me for stopping in beautiful chanting. This is Shivani from Ashram, India. Let us move to our next part of the session. Today, His Grace Chakrapani Prabhuji will be enlightening us on the historical evidence of Lord Krishna, session 2. Good morning, dear devotees. May I know who will have joined this morning?
Hare Krishna, Shivani Mataji. Please answer my humble obeisances, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Thank you, Mataji, for the warm welcoming, and thank you, Mataji, for your beautiful chanting. Mataji, after you read Prabhupada's quote, can you hand over to Indulekha Karuna for introduction of Prabhuji?
Sure,
and then Prabhuji can take over.
Sure, after Shri Prabhupada's quote, yes, sure. Hare Krishna, dear devotees.
Mataji, Danvat Pranam, so glorious to Shri Prabhupada and all the assembled Vaishnavas. This is Kirti Das. Thank you so much, Uma Mataji, for your presentation.
Hare Krishna, Kirti Sundari Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Garanga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining, giving a beautiful association. All glories to your services. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is me too from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna, me too. Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Garanga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining and giving a beautiful association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shivani Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from College Station, Texas. Uma Mataji, very beautiful recitation.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Gopika Ma. Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Garanga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining and giving a beautiful association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shivani Mataji, Dandavat Pranam to you and all Vaishnavas. Prabhupada Gurudev ki jai, Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Vrinda Gopika Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Guru and Garanga ki jai. Thank you so much for joining and giving a beautiful association. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, I would like to start by sharing a quote by Srila Prabhupada ji. The holy name is so powerful that even by chanting with offenses, gradually he becomes. The holy name is so powerful that even by chanting with offenses, gradually he becomes pure. Therefore, we should not give up chanting any circumstances. We should go on chanting Hare Krishna. Denver, June 28, 1975. Good morning, dear devotees. Welcome you all to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. I would like to give the call to Indulekha Karuna Mataji for introduction. Please take over, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much for your very warm welcoming. And thank you to Mataji for her beautiful recitation. I would like to introduce His Grace Chakrapani Prabhuji, who's on the call with us today. So Prabhuji, he has authored a groundbreaking research book on the historical evidence for Mahabharata after researching for an extensive period of time for over 5 years. And this book is called Mahabharata, Myth or History, and it has a lot of evidences from 12 or more academic disciplines. And Prabhuji has studied over 400 books during this period in order to complete this book. He is right now the director of Historica Foundation, which is a research-based NGO that is focused on establishing the real history of Bharat and Sanatan Dharma. And he started producing world-class documentaries and many research books in this process. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, there is a lot more to speak about you, but I'd like to hand over the session to you. Please go ahead. and enlighten us on this topic. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for this opportunity. So we are continuing from the previous week, the topic which we discussed on the historical evidences of Krishna. Although we fairly covered most of the topic, most of it was covered, but what we will do today is that we will touch upon what was not covered, and also we will go a little deeper, because yes, last week was more of a run through. We were like quickly running through and trying to complete the session. So we'll go a little deeper today, and we'll make sure that we properly understand the stuffs very deeply. So without further delay, let me quickly recite the Pranam Mantras. Om Jnana-Tirasya Jnana-Dachalakya Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahya Dadapi Tam Deham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnava Shri Rupam Savidatam Sharanatan Shri Ram Sadvaitam Savadhu Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahita Shri Krishna Bhaktan Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Jagat Kate Gopesha Gopika Kante Radha Kate Bhaktanjali Gaurandi Ishwari Shabanu Devi Devancha Vasu Patidanam Pavane Vyu Vaishnavi Om Maha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare Ram Ram Hare. So Hare Krishna, thank you again for inviting me for the second session on the historical evidences of Lord Krishna. So 1 week has passed since we had our last session. So I would, before we start, I would like to ask you all, whoever came for the previous session or you saw the recordings, I would, okay, volume, let me just check the volume, build up. Okay, is that good enough? Volume is good enough now, Mataji?
It's okay for me. I don't have any problem.
Okay, I can, for a moment, just check the mic and check my, yeah, I'll put this headphone. How's this, Mataji? Can you hear me now? Is this better?
Yeah,
Much better.
So much better.
Perfect. Okay. So before we continue, I would love to hear your feedback. Like those who came for the last week or you saw the recordings, can you share what you got from the previous week or how the week went? What was the experiences of the class, and what got transformed after you attended the session? Just a quick half a minute, if you can just type it in the chat. So what helps is that I get a perspective of how this is helping devotees. Although I have done the seminar for literally thousands and thousands of devotees, it really helps to get a deeper perspective, some newer perspectives about how this seminar is useful, how this research is impacting the devotees, and so on. Right. So meanwhile, we type. All of you are typing. So I would like to also what we do today is that we will be touching deeper upon the aspects of dating. We'll touch deeper on the aspect of dating. Dating is a very critical and an important topic when it comes to history and historical research. So generally, academically speaking, Mahabharata is started to be accepted as a history gradually since the time of 1960s and 70s. There was a great shift which was happening towards accepting Mahabharata as history. How it happened? There was a great archaeologist by the name of Dr. B.B. Lal. So what Dr. B.B. Lal did is that he excavated several sites, and the dating of those sites came to around 2,900 years old, like several Mahabharata sites. So based on that, the dating of Mahabharata was given to be 2,900 years old. Right? It proves that Krishna Mahabharata was 2,900 years old, and Buddhism came thereafter. So that's the kind of dating he gave. Now, before we proceed further, I would like to ask if anybody can share their feedback on what exactly is the year when Mahabharat war happened. Or what was the year when Bhagavad Gita was spoken? Because generally we say 5,000 years ago Mahabharat happened. 5,000 years ago Lord Krishna gave this at Bhagavad Gita. 5,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. So we keep saying the 5,000 year narrative, but that this 5,000 is not always going to be 5,000. Sometimes it will become 5,100. Sometimes it's going to become 5,200 and eventually 5,500 and eventually it will become 6,000. As time progresses, we're not going to have that stable at 5,000. In fact, it's not anymore 5,000. It has crossed much beyond. So my question here is that does anyone of you know when exactly is the year of the Mahabharat war? Anyone?
3,247 to 50 BC.
Okay. What exactly is the basis of which you're giving this date?
Actually, I have read about this of many people who have conducted research, and I used to read those articles over the internet about Dwarka and about the exact date of the Mahabharata. It's it's also all over the internet. So I just came across. So I'm just sharing that.
All right. So we will be going deeper into the scholarly perspective of the dating of the Mahabharata and the cultural impact of Krishna and Mahabharata across the globe, not just India. So that we will touch upon a little deeper. And we will also go deeper into some topics which we, kind of went faster last week. So without further delay, I'll share the presentation. So I hope you can see the presentation. Let 1 second, just me. Okay, so I hope you can see the screen now. I hope the screen is visible now.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So we just quickly going through what we saw last week. So we saw that, many times we face this kind of statements that Krishna never came, Mahabharat never happened. These kind of challenges we keep facing. Then we saw about how the children of congregation devotees are not interested in Krishna consciousness, in bhakti, and in the Vedic culture, in our Sanatana Dharma. So I'm pretty sure you would have experienced, in your circle, maybe your own families or your network or some friends, relatives, somewhere you have definitely seen that the parents are ultra serious and the children are not interested. Am I making sense here? Do any of you disagree with this? That right? We have parents who are very serious about being spiritual and cultural, but we don't have that kind of passion uh, in children. Children are not that interested. And one of the primary reasons, uh, among the several primary reasons, one primary reason I found is that they think that this is all mythology, that this never happened, this is imaginary, this is fables and fantasies. One student gave this narrative that Vyasdev did not have any work to do. He was a good author and writer. So probably one king during his time did a crowdfunding program and they arranged a lot of money so that Vyasdev could write a lot of books, which we have today as Vedas and Puranas and all that. So this kind of narrative is uh, is there, right? So that narrative has to be properly established. What is the fact? Is our scriptures real? Are they giving factual information, historical data, or they are just made up, hooked up stories? So that we need to go deeper. Unfortunately, in India, I'm not aware of what is there in the US or other countries, but in India, we have this kind of a scenario where people who do not have a clear understanding of chronology. So you all aware what is chronology? Chronology is a sequence. In simple terms, it's who comes after whom. Like, my grandfather comes first, then comes father, then myself, then my son, then my grandson, my great grandson. So that's chronology. That's sequential order. But you see, this kind of data is given by so-called historians. What is said is Yudhishthir existed Yudhishthir was inspired by Ashoka. Can you imagine that? How in the world can Yudhishthir be inspired by Ashoka? Because 2300 or 2400 years old Buddhist text, they refer to Yudhishthir as the son of Pandu. They refer to the 5 Pandavas' names and they say that Yudhishthir is the son of Pandu. That means Yudhishthir was much before, right? Much before this period of 2400 years old, around 300, 400 BC. So how in the world can Yudhishthir be inspired by Ashoka? Because if I'm taking inspiration from someone, I have to be after them, historically speaking. I cannot be before them. So if Yudhishthir was inspired by Ashoka, then he has to be placed at Yudhishthir must be 2000 years old or 2100 years old or 2200 years old or maybe even later. How he can be 5000 years old? He cannot be. But this historian says that Yudhishthir was inspired by Ashoka. Then why do Buddhist literature speak of an ancient king Yudhishthir who was the son of Pandu? So what they say doesn't match up with the facts. See, this is the book Kunal Jatak. As you can see here, it says that Yudhishthir was the son of Pandu. So then we saw about how this kind of education is not helping our devotee children become Krishna conscious. Then we discussed about how thousands of non-Indians accept Krishna consciousness and also a broader Vedic culture. People are more interested towards yoga, Ayurveda, right, natural living, healthy lifestyle, more Indian food. So a lot of this is being accepted across the globe, not just the aspect of spirituality, but Indian culture, the Vedic Bharatiya Sanskriti is being accepted across the globe. But Indians are going far away from it, be it the Indians in India or the NRIs. We see a lot of them are going far away from their home culture, the root culture. So we also have this problem that thousands of temples were destroyed. Thousands and thousands and thousands of temples were destroyed. A lot of data is lost. If I have to give you a context, what we have today in India, in Bharat, of course, we also lost a lot of land. Pakistan is gone. 5 or 6 of Vedic kingdoms, Mahabharata kingdoms, comprises of what we call today as modern day Pakistan. Can you imagine that? 5, 6 kingdoms put together, which were active during the Mahabharata period. I'll give you a few names. One is the Madra kingdom. Madra is from where Madri came, right? Nakul Sahadev, right? Nakul Sahadev's mama was Shalya. He was the king of Madra. That is in modern day Pakistan. Sindh, which we have this province, it was called as Sindhu Janapada. I belong to a Sindhi family, so Sindhu Janapada. The king was Jayadratha. And then Sauvira. Sauvira was another kingdom north of Sindh. That again is lost to Pakistan. Then few other kingdoms like that, Ambasta and few others. So just imagine the colossal loss. We already lost so much of land. We lost our temples. We lost our history. Libraries were burnt. Whatnot. So in spite of all that, see, we have this now. Narendra Modi ji has inaugurated a new university in Nalanda just as a significance to, like a bounce back. That we have got that same ancient university back. So imagine people from all across the globe used to come and study in universities in India. We have lost so much. And if we do not take it seriously, we will definitely are going to lose more. How we are going to lose more? To give you a context, in Vrindavan, in Braj, there is a place named as Ghoshna. And where is this Ghoshna? Ghoshna is Gosna, Gosna. It's on the outskirts of Mathura city. So when you go from Mathura, little further away, you will see, you can check it on Google Maps, it's Gosna. Gosna is an ancient site. Right? Even in my book, I have discussed in great detail about Gosna and its historical background and all that. So Gosna has an ancient mound. Now there is a difference between a mountain and a mound. A mound is an ancient, mound is basically a collection of ancient sites. It's basically like if you have an ancient building or a structure or remains of ancient sites, the mud gets accumulated, vegetation, plantation keeps coming, and then it becomes like an artificial mountain. But it's not a natural mountain. It has been formed because there were remains of ancient buildings there. So Ghosna had an ancient mound going back to 4,000 years. That was few years back. It was rammed down, smashed down by a JCB. JCB, if you don't know what it is, it's like a bulldozer. It smashed it. And then the archaeology department came running and they took some samples, and then they went to the library and to check it. They found that the remains of the site of Ghosna dates back to 4,000 years. A 4,000-year-old site was just in a span of few hours gone. So history is getting lost. And why it is important? We are spiritually minded people. We can just chant and be happy. What's so important about history? It is damn important. Why? Because even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave that much importance to history. He asked the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan to locate the ancient sites of Radha Krishna. So much so that Radha Kund, Sham Kund, and all these sites which are today very famous in Braj was located during the period of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, relocated rather. So that much is important history. That's why Mahaprabhu gave this. Otherwise, who will know where these sites are? Similarly, in the case of the Yog Peeth in Mayapur, the ancient site was located. So the point to be noted is that history is getting lost, and we do not preserve it. We do not have a substance. We do not have a foundation on base of which our religion and culture can be built upon or preached by. It's not possible. Right? A culture without a homeland suffers. Right? So that's why what I did is that I understood the importance of this work. And therefore, after years and years of extensive research from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, Gujarat till northeast India, I collected more than 300 plus evidences of Krishna and Mahabharat and brought this in the form of this book, Mahabharat, Myth or History. So it's an extensive piece of research, collecting in-depth analysis with razor sharp logic and clear-cut analysis, and establishing the point that Krishna cannot be an imaginary character. Mahabharata is never a mythology. It's a real history, right? All that has been systematically established in this book, Mahabharata, Myth or History. So now, coming to today's topic, again, today's topic will be more focused on the aspect of the scientific aspects of dating and archaeology, and we'll also touch upon culture. But before that, we will go deeper into some topics. So what I did last week is that I gave an overview, and that was important because what happens is when we do, just touch upon one subject like be it archaeology and leave it for the next, that's not that much connecting for a new audience. A new audience wants a broader perspective. So I gave a broader perspective last week. Now we are going a little deeper. Of course, we can do many more sessions. Like I have at least, I would say, sessions on the Janapada history. Now, what is Janapada? Now, youngsters in India, youngsters in outside India, the NRI children, or those who are settled abroad and become citizens abroad, the children there do not have a trace of their past, where their history gets rooted to. Like, for example, if your ancestors are coming from a remote village in Rajasthan, what was their history during the Mahabharata period? Tracing it back. I have a special course on that, which we do it for the youngsters and for the children, where we help them trace their history back to the Mahabharata period. So apart from that, I have several courses like Science in Ancient India and specific topic on historical evidences of Krishna and like that. So several courses where we trace upon the worldwide impact of the Vedic Indian culture. And so there are topics ranging from a variety of subjects. So today we are focusing more on going deeper into certain topics which I kind of touched upon last week. So just to remind, this research has been blessed by hundreds and hundreds of great personalities, including His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj and several senior sannyasis and gurus and devotees, famous personalities. They have all approved of this work and appreciated it. And in fact, some Prabhupada disciples told me that this was desire of Srila Prabhupada that this kind of research happens. But it took time, but it has fortunately happened, and it has happened through our team. And so Prabhupada will be very pleased, the entire Sampradaya will be very pleased, because this research is preserving the past for the future. And that's why we have named our NGO as Historica. And our tagline is Discover Your Past, Shape Your Future. Your future gets shaped based on your past, because history is often working on cyclic patterns, right? Everything is cyclical, right? Day and night and seasons, and you see the cyclical pattern repeating everywhere. So history is that important. History is a great teacher. History is a great source of inspiration. History is also teaching us how to be careful, and so on. So also I am a guest faculty in Delhi University Center for Hindu Studies, and several universities across the country in India invite me for conferences, workshops, where I train future scholars of Vedic culture to defend our narrative, to preach, to preserve, to research. So it's not an easy task to build, a proper narrative, bring out a lot of new books. So we are making our research team in a way that all this happens, and we are looking for a lot of devotees to come together and help us further this cause, so that many people get to know about our real history. So a lot of podcasts also available. You can check it out by this name, Chandru Ramesh. This is available across. So now, coming to the point of today's seminar, we discussed about this last week. You remember we discussed about these coins found in Denmark and how the Vedic culture was spread across the globe, in several countries across the globe, in fact. And we saw the coins of Lakshmi found in Denmark. Then we discussed about how ancient Surya temple, the Mitra temple, was found in London. Then we saw the similarities between the Vedic Surya and the Greek Surya. Then we discussed about Mitra, how the worship of Mitra spread across the globe, right? And then across Eurasia, Europe, and Asia. Then we saw about this very interesting inscription. It's called as the Bogaskoi inscription, in which Vedic gods like Indra, Mitra, Varuna, and Nasatya are being called as divine witness when there is a treaty between a Hittite king and a Mitanni king. That's happening in modern day Turkey. Then we saw about the 5 sons of Maharaj Yayati. Druhyu got the regions of Gandhar, around Gandhar. Anu got Punjab, around Punjab. Yadu got Western India. Puru got the heartland of India. Turuvasu got the eastern and probably the southern region as well. So there, due to the later conflicts of these various kingdoms, Druhyus migrated far, 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 and they became the Druids of Europe. We saw that. So the history of Druhyus ends in Bharat, and the history of Druids begins in Europe. So that we saw last week, how the culture of Druids and Druhyus have a lot of similarity. And of course, this is a separate seminar where we discuss about the worldwide impact of the Vedic culture from the perspective of anthropology, comparative history, comparative religion, and so on. So that's again a separate topic. Then we saw about Indra, how different cultures had Indra, the worship of Indra, and all that. Then we saw about the Nevali Kori ruins, about how the ancient statues were found with tuft, the shikha, which we call it in Sanskrit. And this was found in Turkey. Then we discussed about the Dasaragya battle and some of the tribes which were there in the Dasaragya battle. So what is Dasaragya battle? Dasaragya is the battle of 10 kings, where 10 kings sat and fought. 10 kings, 10 different kingdoms fought against the Maharaj Sudas. So Maharaj Sudas fought against 10 different kingdoms. Some were the Parshvas, the Pakhtuns, the Parthas. So Pakhtas became the Pakhtuns, which is famously today known as the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. I'm pretty sure some of you would have heard this name. And from Pakhtuns become Pashtuns, and from Pashtuns become Pathan. The word Pathan comes from the Rig Veda, basically. Right? Pakhtas becomes Pakhtuns, Pashtuns, and Pathans. So we have many famous cricketers as well with this name, and Irfan Pathan. A lot of Pathans are famous. So this word Pathan comes from the Rig Veda, and then we have the Parshvas. Parshvas that comes from uh, these are tribes, kingdoms located in modern day Iran, and this word Parshva becomes Persia, and Persia is very famous. Then we have the word Parsi that comes again from Parshva. Partha, this ancient kingdom become the Parthians of Iran, like that. So a lot of this history. You see these names, different names of different countries, regions, cities, tribes, people groups. All of that somehow or the other, right, have been impacted by Bharat or Bharatiya Sanskriti or Bharatiya literature or culture. So somehow they have some connection, be it in their names, be it in their lifestyle, be it in their culture, and so on. So that we saw, and then we saw about how the Vedic culture was spread across the globe and it got shortened, and then we have what we call today as the modern day India. Okay, and we discussed about Bahlika, the kingdom of Bahlika. This is again, now many of you might, again, when I said we'll go deeper, this is something where we are going deeper again. We're not running through like last week. Balk. See this word Balk? This word Balk becomes Bactria, right? It becomes Bactria. And so Balk, the word comes from Bahlika. And Bahlika was the brother, right? Was the brother of Devapi and Shantanu. Right? Devapi and Shantanu. All of you must be aware of Shantanu. He was the father of Bhishma. So younger brother of Shantanu was Bahlika, and his descendants, the Bahlika descendants, got settled in the northern region of Afghanistan. That became known as Balkh. Even now, you just check it on Google, type this name Balkh. You will get the history as Balkh, the region of Balkh, northern Afghanistan. That the name of Balkh comes from Bahlika. Bahlika, the Bahlika kingdom. So that name comes from the Mahabharata. And then we have Peshawar. The word Peshawar, again, has no intrinsic meaning on its own. It comes from Purushapura. Purushapura. Then we have Takshila, which the British, they used to call it as Taxila, right? Takshashila. That became Takshila, Taxila, Taxila. The British made it Taxila. Right? Then we have, so a lot of these names and culture, everything you trace it down to Bharat. Then we have Kandahar, very famous again, Kandahar. So that it gets its name from Gandhar, the kingdom of Gandhar. Right? Then we have, then we entered last week on the various evidences of coins. The evidences of coins of Agathocles. We have here written Vasudev and the Chakra. We have Samkarshana with a hull, a plow, and a gada, mace. And it's written here Agathocles, 2,300 years old coin. Then we discuss about the ancient pillars of Heliodorus. So where it's written the Garuda pillar of Vasudev, the god of gods, was constructed here by Heliodorus, the Bhagavad, right? So this, we discussed about this, that is the most ancient recorded foreign devotee of Lord Krishna, Heliodorus, right? So then we saw about Greek sources, we saw about Indica and how Indica gives the evidences of the most ancient Krishna worship in India, because there may be some, I mean, if you encounter somebody who says, oh, Krishna is a recent character, somebody created him very recently, there is no proof of Lord Krishna, right? Just a moment. Right. So there is no proof of Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is just created this 1,000 years back, 1,500 years back, 2,000 years back. He never existed. Some even create this theory that Lord Krishna was actually a South Indian person. The North Indian people took him and created his new identity and made a masala and created this Kanha of Vrindavan. I mean, people just say anything what they want to say. So if somebody says some really absurd, speculative theories and nonsense, you could tell them the evidence of Megasthenes. Megasthenes, 2,300 years back, gives this point that in Methora, if you all remember, right, in the city of Methora, there was an ancient group of people by the name of Sorcenoi, which is basically the Shursen people. And they, on the banks of the river Jobares, which is Jamuna, they worship a person by the name of Heracles, Hari Kulish. Hari, who is the Kulish of the Shursena people. We saw a very beautiful example which proves that how old is Krishna worship in Mathura. Then we saw about the evidences of how old is Mahabharata. If somebody says, "Oh, Mahabharata is just 1,000 years old," oh, the most ancient manuscript of Mahabharata is just 1,000 years old. How you can say Mahabharata is real? Mahabharata is just created 1,000 years back. The most ancient religion is Buddhism. All that kind of thing people may say. So if you encounter that kind of a question, that kind of a challenge, how do you answer? So this is the thing, that we have the most ancient references to the Mahabharata book, the Mahabharata text, going back to even the Vedic corpus itself. In the Ashwalayana Grihya Sutra, we have reference to the book named Mahabharata. And the Mahabharata characters are mentioned in the most ancient of the Buddhist literatures, most ancient of the inscription. We have Mahabharata characters. So the point is that you give them the evidence that this book is not created just 1,000 years back. Now, what is this 1,000-year theory? The most ancient manuscript of the Mahabharata is just 1,000 years old. Okay, the most ancient manuscript which we have today currently is 1,000 years old. Now you may wonder, oh, Mahabharata is definitely 1,000 years old. No, it doesn't work like that. What happens is that in India we have this tradition of manuscript copying. We have an old manuscript which is kind of decaying, or it's getting torn apart, or it's being bitten by insects and worms or termites or whatever. It's facing issues of getting lost manuscripts, and it has important shlokas encrypted in it and written on top of it, so we need to preserve it. So in frequent intervals, people used to recopy it in newer manuscripts. So the most ancient manuscript which we have today available today is 1,000 years old. So the message is old, the medium is new. I'm repeating again, the message is old, the medium is new. If you got that, I'm repeating it final time. The message is old, the medium is new. So if somebody says, oh, it is just 1,000 years old, bhai sahab, it is not 1,000 years old. We have a tradition of constantly recopying the manuscripts. So that tradition was being followed in ancient India, and therefore we have this tradition of manuscripts being preserved. So what happens is, when we have these invasions, manuscripts which are rare, which we don't have a copy of, we lose them. Why? Because we don't have a copy of that. Whereas Mahabharata was spread across the Indian subcontinent, entire Bharat, and therefore you burn out Nalanda, you burn Takshashila, or you burn any other library, you destroy that. Still, we have Mahabharata today. We have Bhagavad Gita today because it was a pervasive civilization. It was a pervasive literature. It never, got restricted to. And that's why you see many civilizations in Europe, in the Middle East, in West Asia, they're just wiped out. Why? Because they are centralized. Their literature's culture is centralized at one single point, and you hit that, you burn that, you kill, finish. Whereas, in spite of so much of invasion, in fact, one of the bloodiest episodes of history is right here in India. In spite of so much, we have so much of history remaining because we have this culture of spreading. Not just centralizing it to one location, but spreading it across. So that's why we have a lot of data still preserved today in the form of inscriptions, coins, in the form of cultural data, in the form of ancient manuscripts, in the form of cave paintings, and so on. A lot of these evidences we have today in Buddhist literature, Jain literature, foreign travelers, and so on. So then we discussed about how Heracles worship was prevalent even during the Alexander-Porus War. Alexander fought against Porus, and even during that, we had this the picture of Heracles being carried in front of Alexander. Heracles, basically the picture of Krishna being carried in front of Alexander. Then we saw about how foreign travelers like Yuan Shuang, Fa Yan, and many other travelers and court poets of even Akbar, they have given references and evidences of the Mahabharata and Krishna. Then we straight went to the Yaduvamsha, the history of the Yaduvamsha, and then how they migrated to Dwarka. So if you remember, I touched upon how Yaduvamsha started from West India, like Gujarat and those regions. Then they went to Mathura. Then they got attacked by, because of the frequent attacks of Jarasan, they wanted some peace, and they didn't want to engage with him further. They all migrated, and they were, of course, wanted to create a fresh kingdom of Dwarka, so they all shifted to Dwarka. And when the Dwarka city got submerged, they again shifted back to Indraprasth, where Vajranab was made the king. And then after some period, we find again that they have came back to their ancestral land of Methora, where the Jobaris river was flowing as referred by Megasthenes. So we studied this cycle. Then we came about the awareness in Vedas, as I told you before. Ashwalayana Grihya Sutra, one of the most ancient literatures, they refer to the text of Bharat and Mahabharat. Right? We saw that. Then we saw about how the Puranas are referring to the Mahabharata story and Krishna. And then this is a very fascinating detail about how different Buddhist literatures, right? Krishna is the son of Devaki and Vasudev, and how he became the king of Dwarka is beautifully narrated in this 2,400-year-old literature called as Ghatajatak. Ghatajatak describes the story of Krishna from his appearance in Mathura all the way till his becoming the king of Dwarka is narrated in this 2,400-year-old literature called as Ghatajatak. Then we have Dhananjaya, Arjun, Vidura narrated in Dhumakari Jatak. Then we have Yudhishthir, Bhim, Arjun, Nakul and Sahadev narrated in Kunal Jatak. Kuru king ruling Indraprastha in Dasabrahman Jatak. And Buddha Charitra, the life of Buddha, mentions about the stories of Mahabharata. So this is the family lineage of Krishna, Satvata Vrishni lineage, Satvata Vrishni. And then we have here down Shura, Shursen, all the way. Yeah, this is Shursen here, Shursen. And then we have Vasudev, Krishna, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vajranab. The great grandson of Krishna was Vajranab, who was ruling Indraprasth, which we call it today as Delhi. The word Delhi has no intrinsic meaning in itself from the historical perspective. The right name for this city is Indraprasth, because that's not only mentioned in the Mahabharata. We also find the reference of Indraprasth in various literatures like Buddhist literatures, Greek literatures, and so on. Sometimes we could also have just a seminar on Indraprasth, the history of Indraprasth, the archaeology of Indraprasth, the inscriptions of Indraprasth, how old it is, what are the evidences of it, what was the culture there, and how the city has transformed from that point to this point. All that could be a separate in-depth analysis. So like that, we could have different programs like that. Then we have the rock art of Tikla, beautifully describes the world's oldest Jagannath Baldev Subhadra prototype. Some scholars identify the female figure here as female deity here as Ekanamsa, whereas some identify her as Subhadra. But in any case, the world's most ancient cave painting of Krishna and Balram is right here. Here you see him with Chakra, and here you see Balram with his famous plow. Very famous, very ancient cave painting. I have several such inscriptions, cave paintings, and coins depicted in my book. It's a must buy for every devotee of Krishna. So that if anybody says he's imaginary, fictional, and all that, speak with evidences. Give them this book, ask them to read it. And when you're going somewhere for a marriage party, for a birthday party, want to give them a gift. It's one of the best gifts you could ever give. Give this book so that they get faith on Krishna. This book builds faith. This is a faith building book. This is a book which establishes the ground, the foundation on which the preaching happens. That's why you see the Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata. Bhagavad Gita is the most important text. That's part of Mahabharata. Mahabharata is part of the group of literatures called as Itihas. The most important literature is part of Itihas, history. History is not the exact right translation, but just to give you an idea, the most ancient, the most important literature, Bhagavad Gita, is part of Itihas. Itihasa means thus so happened. So that much is important, History, Itihas is that much important. And we saw about the world's most ancient deities of Krishna Balram. Then we saw about Moravel inscription, one of the fascinating inscriptions of my search throughout Bharatvarsh. When I used to travel, I found this very, very fascinating inscription. So here it's written, the five Vrishnis, the five Panchveer Vrishni, the five heroes of the Vrishni clan. So who these five Vrishnis are was a big, big challenge for me to identify. I used to wonder who these five Vrishnis are. We all know that Krishna is called as Varshaneya because he belonged to the Vrishni clan. But who are these five Vrishnis? That was a big, big thing which was eureka moment for me. So these are the five Vrishnis. When I went to Andhra Pradesh, I decoded them. That the five Vrishnis have been depicted in a sculptural panel. Right? This is famously called as the Kondamatu panel in Guntur district in Andhra Pradesh. I'm pretty sure many of you would have heard about this district called as the Guntur district. In Guntur district, we have this 1,700-year-old panel called as the Kondamatu panel. And Kondamatu panel has the five Vrishnis being carved, not the five Pandavas, the five Vrishnis. So these five Vrishnis are, as said in Vayupuran, they are Sankarshan, Vasudev, Pradyumna, Samba, and Aniruddha. Then we saw about the Tamil literature, how the ancient Tamil literatures like Perumpanatrupadai, Chirupanatrupadai, Agananuru, Purananuru, and many, many other literatures. Of course, I can directly read Tamil. I am raised in Tamil Nadu, born and raised there. So I am more like a Tamilian in terms of how I was born and raised. So I can understand these ancient inscriptions, the ancient text of the Tamil language, very beautiful and ancient language. So we have hundreds and hundreds of references of Vedic culture or Mahabharata or Krishna in the Tamil literature, so that have been decoded. And then we saw the other literatures which have not much dealing with the Mahabharata, but they also give evidences of the Mahabharata. Then we saw about the geography. We saw about the geographical data, how Mahabharata has tons and tons of geographical data and that it is historical. Then we saw about the various kingdoms of the Mahabharata period. We have 26 on the Pandava side, 45 on the Kaurava side, how they fought. This again is a 6-session course. The Janapada, which I was speaking earlier in this session. This again is a 6-session course where we discuss in detail about the various kingdoms of the Mahabharata period. Then we saw about Dwarka, how Dwarka was discovered, how people, especially the team of Dr. S.R. Rao, they did a fascinating job, right? They did a fascinating research and they found out the ancient city of Dwarka. For long, it was considered that Dwarka is mythology, imaginary, and so on. But when this research of Dr. S.R. Rao happened, then Dwarka was considered to be historical. There are some photos of that we saw last week. And then we saw about this famous inscription, Mahakachasapaha, about how it describes about the worship of sea god and how that is proven by the references in the Mahabharata. We saw that. And we saw about, now this is something we're going to go deeper. I'm very happy. I'm really very happy that I gave again second purview of the entire thing we covered in the past week. Now what will happen right now is that this is kind of photographed in your memory. Something gets repeated, that gets stored harder and stronger. So now we are going to go deeper into the technical aspects of history, which is on the question of dating and the question of archaeology. So how many of you have experienced that when you go to Vrindavan, have any of you experienced that actually you're not walking on a flat surface? Probably you're walking on an ancient city. Anybody has experience like that? When you're walking in the streets of Loy Bazaar, when you're walking on the streets of, for example, Dwarkadish temple in Dwarka, do you feel like you're walking on top of or going on top of ancient city? Have you ever experienced that? If yes, That's a really valid experience. Because we are a continuous civilization living on top of ancient civilizations. I did not go deeper into this topic last week. I'll be going deeper this time. So we are a civilization living on top, on top, on top, and many more. We are living on top of ancient civilizations. We are a continuous civilization, and therefore, evidences of our civilization are much lesser compared to those civilizations which left and they become desertified, right? Uh, like several of these countries west of India. We don't have much of vegetation there, much of water there. So there's a lot of population is quite less compared to India. So what happens is that people live and they leave. They live and leave. So you have these ancient artifacts and ancient, remains. A lot of them get preserved because nobody is living on top of it. But in India, we have this unique situation. We are the world's most ancient civilization, yet we are the least excavated civilization. Most ancient, yet least excavated. So what happens is that anybody and anyone, they start questioning our history. They say, oh, this is imaginary, this is mythology. Where is the proof? Oh, this is concocted, this is speculative, this is fictional, this is imaginary, this is mythology. And we are left with no answers. So, what we are doing right now in our team is that we are working on locating several of these ancient sites. And my experience in one of these sites was really fascinating. So I have not put up the picture here, but I'm just giving description of it. When you go to Lucknow, if anybody is from UP, or if you go to UP, make sure you visit to this place known as Holaskhera. Holaskera, Holaskhera. It's a very ancient archaeological site, historical site, built by the Kushan kings. And one of the famous Kushan kings was King Kanishka. I'm pretty sure some of you would have heard this name, Kanishka. So Kushan kings built this ancient city in Holaskhera. I mean, it's a huge location, The palace's remains are still to be found. The rooms of the prince and princess are still to be found. It's 2,500 or 3,000 years old ancient site. Not taken care properly, discarded, not even one security to see if it's preserved. No CCTVs or cameras to watch over it. It's just lying in the open. So in that kind of site, when I did some research, I found that this site had 3,000-year-old civilization, and it had a very ancient Kartikeya deity was found in that site. Can you imagine for a moment? Definitely that Kartikeya deity must have been around 2,500 or maybe much older than that, was found in that ancient site. So how much of history is still not excavated? According to American archaeologists, 90% of India is still not excavated. Imagine if any ancient site of the Mahabharat period or any ancient site related to Krishna comes out. How amazing would that be? That's what we are working for. We are working for preserving the Lord's history so that the future is connected to the Lord. And nobody dares to question his history. Nobody dares to say the Lord is imaginary, mythology, and fictional. So this is one such site called as the Chariots of Senoli, where nearly 3,800 years old site, where the evidences of chariots, helmets, weapons were found, right? And warrior burials following proper customs. And we have remains of the chariots, we have weapons found in this site. Now, why this site is fascinating is because during the British colonial period, there was a theory which was floated around that the Vedic culture or the Vedas, Aryans, they're all outside. they're all from outside. They're not belonging to India. They all came from outside. The Aryans are cruel invaders who came from outside. They came raging in their horses, powerfully in their chariots, and destroyed everything on their way. And they landed in India. And when they came, according to Max Muller, it was 3,500 years ago. 3,500 years ago, Aryans invaded India. This is the theory which is being floated around, which was floated around during the British colonial period. Prominent among them was Max Muller. Max Muller says that the Aryans invaded India at around 3,500 years ago, which is 1,500 BC approximately. And before that, India did not have chariots, India did not have horses, and India did not have weapons. All this was brought by these cruel, nasty, barbaric Aryans. Along with them came the Aryans were primarily Kshatriyas, but were guided by these wily and cunning Brahmins, who were the guiding force of the Brahmins, guiding force of the Aryans. And these cunning Brahmins, right? These cunning Brahmins wrote what we call today as the Veda. Can you imagine this? This was floated around in academia. So these chariots, they are 3,800 years old, or maybe even 3,900 years old. So this discovery was around 5-6 years back, completely smashed the Aryan invasion theory that Aryans came from outside, Sanatan Dharma came from outside India, Vedic culture was an invading culture, they don't belong to Bharat. All that nonsense got smashed with this single discovery of the chariots of Sanoli. So what we are doing in our team is we are working on the latest technology, latest available technology. Of course, we are an NGO, a charity initiative where we are depending on the government, we're depending on well-wishers. What we do is that we focus on locating these ancient sites of Lord Krishna, of the Mahabharata, or maybe even any ancient site related to any ancient king, or how does it work? So we have this references available in our scriptures that along the banks of this river, there was this famous mountain and certain kind of vegetation and plantation was growing here. And along that, there was this ancient kingdom. So these are historical references used at to go and locate a particular site. We have started working on it. So what happens is that we use the latest available technology to locate that, and then we submit the data to the Archaeological Survey of India and request them to please kindly work on it. This is how it works. So imagine the prospect of what this has to offer. In India, 90% of ancient India is still not excavated, which is thousands and thousands of sites are not yet excavated. That's the potential. That's the potential which this country has to offer. Just see this site. This is a site in Europe called as the Coppergate site. As you can see here, this layer, if you can see the mouse cursor, this is the most ancient layer. This is around 2,000 years old. And this is around 1,500. This is around 1,100. This is around 1,000, right? So like that, 900, 800, 500, 300, present layer. So what happens is that in the same place, people have lived on top, 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 on top. So keep, the newer civilization keeps coming on top of the older civilization on the very same location. Now, how in the world are we going to excavate these densely populated cities of modern day Bharat? Very difficult, nearly impossible. That's why the focus is more towards land which is not excavated, not built upon, not occupied, not constructed. And there are tons of such sites, the banks of rivers and which are currently forest or agricultural land, very easy to locate. So we are working seriously with the government and we are supporting them in any way possible to find sites So history is that important that if we don't preserve it for the future, we are going to lose it. Damn sure we are going to lose it. It's not going to be there forever. And nature does its part as well. If you see this, this is a famous uh, historical gem. In fact, a castle built by the Hittites and later expanded by the Romans in modern day Turkey. Very beautiful castle. This is nearly 2,200 years old. If you remember, there was an earthquake recently in Turkey. And after the earthquake, this particular building, this ancient castle, became like this. We lost it. Humans play a part, invasions play a part, JCBs do their part, right? And constructions on top of ancient civilizations do their part. And nature also plays its part. If we don't take our steps, whatever remaining is definitely going to get lost. And whatever is unexcavated, untouched, that also is probable to get lost. Why? Because the artifact doesn't live forever. I mean, the artifacts, like for example, these are ancient artifacts like potteries. They're not going to be for millions of years, lakhs of years. Someday or the other, they are going to face destruction. The material itself doesn't have durability forever, for eternity. So preservation is that important. Even before that, identifying is that much important. Right? So that's something we are working upon. And now coming to the final topic, the most fascinating and interesting topic of the dating. If as a practitioner of Sanatan Dharma, Vedic culture, what is our pivotal point of dating? So we are using different dating methodologies in ancient India. Now we are a very scientific culture in terms of dating. We just don't date anything and everything. So now even in the poster of this seminar, we had given the date and time, everything like Indian Standard Time, the particular month as June, the date as 28th, 2024. But in reality, it's not 2024. What is 2024 anyway? It has significance only from the point of zero when it was created. And before that, such a dating system never existed. So in Bharat, we had this dating system of multiple dating systems, and these are prominent ones. The Kali era, the Shalivana Shaka era, the Vikram Samvat era, the Kollam era, Loki Kabda era. These are famous events, or like some king became powerful. Like Vikram Samvat is when it's related to Maharaj Vikramaditya's era of him taking kingship. So Vikram era, Shalivana Shaka is the king Shalivana taking charge, and Kollam era is the from Kerala. Kali era is the beginning of Kali Yuga, 3101 BC. So for Krishna's sake, please register this in your internal brains. I mean, please never forget this. The year of Kali Yuga is 3101 BCE. Of course, again, I don't want to use the word BCE and CE, AD, etc. But just to give you a calculation, it's 3101 BCE. And if you have to trace it back, the number of years comes to 5124. Or you could even say 5125 approximately. 5125 years, 5125 years before Kali Yuga started. And when did the Mahabharat war happened? That again is described beautifully in this inscription. There are many methods by which we date: inscriptions, literature, astronomy, and so on. But with this fascinating dating detail, I will complete today's session. So this is Aihole inscription found in Karnataka. This inscription says, when 30 and 3005 years besides joined with 700 years have passed since the Bharat War, and when 50 and 6 and 500 years of the Shaka kings have also gone by in the Kali age. So they are giving their dating based on Kali era, based on Mahabharat war, based on the Shaka kings, matlab the Shalivana Shaka. And then we do all the calculations. Okay, the inscription informs that 556 years have passed in the Shaka era, Then we know the era of Shakas, right? 78 CE. So from that we add 556, we get 634. So we know that the inscription was carved in 634 CE. And then what is the year of Kali Yuga? Then we backtrack. How we backtrack? 3735 years before that is the year when Bharat War happened, and that is the year when Kali Yuga also started. So based on this inscription and many other inscriptions and literary references, we get the year of the Mahabharata war and the year of Bhagavad Gita and the year when Kali Yuga started is 3101 BC. To back it up, I have given references of more than 400 plus inscriptions, which give this unanimous date of 3101 BCE as the year of Mahabharata war, year of the Bhagavad Gita, year of the beginning of Kali Yuga. So if anybody has any questions so far in terms of the dating, I think it must be clear by now that when was the Bhagavad Gita spoken? Don't ever say it's 5,000 years before. From now onwards, say 5,125 years before the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. I hope you all agree with this, that you would love to say a specific date. And the person listening also will be impressed. Oh, I mean, they have amazing history. They are very clear about their date. They're very clear about their history, how old it is, how ancient it is. Be specific, be precise. 5,125 years ago, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. The most ancient text. You must read it. Stunned, he's impressed. That's the way you have to present. So with this, I complete. I think we will have to have probably some other sessions in the future to touch upon the cultural aspects of Mahabharata and Krishna. We have reached our deadline. In fact, we are 2 minutes above the destined time. So I conclude here. If anybody has any questions, and and one more thing, if you want to connect with me, most welcome. We have our courses and everything. You can also connect with us. And if you have any questions, I'm opening up. If anybody has a question, you can please feel free to contact. Please open up the chat or maybe unmute yourself and you can type in your questions or ask it.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and very, very wonderful class, Prabhu. So you started with how the youth generation, as of now, they say everything is mythology, but this is a session which they have to see, and they will also refer to all these historic references, and they will understand how much it is true. So thank you so much for making all this research, Prabhu. I was just it just took in the past like how it was, and you just showed all the pictures with saying that the Kartikeya deity also was there in so many years before, and I was I was literally taken away that when you said that we are living on the top, so with, from the ancient culture. So thank you so much, Prabhu, for this wonderful class. And yeah, devotees, any questions or realizations? Yes, Preeti Vilasini Mataji, two Bhakti symbols there.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for such another interesting session, for the very fascinating presentation that you have made. Prabhuji, since you were talking about digging these artifacts and finding their age, understanding that this has been there much before Aryan invasion and so on, and also tracking the date of Mahabharata, you did a lot of specific, you showed us specific images and you showed us all of this. So I was curious to see if there was any work done in Kurukshetra per se, where you have seen these artifacts or something like that, because that can also be an evidence for the actual dating of the war. So just was curious.
Yeah, so regarding to Kurukshetra, to be frank and blunt, there is one site in Kurukshetra, right in the heart of the city, which is around 4,000 years old. That has a very famous smelting site, right? So there was smelting going around in the heart of Kurukshetra, which is around 4,000 years old. But of course, again, the question comes of how much research has been done in the entire. So what happens? See, in archaeology, there is two primarily two perspectives of it. One is the vertical archaeology, and there is a horizontal archaeology. Vertical archaeology is that vertical excavations, we call it. So vertical means you select one particular area and you go deeper, 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 deeper. You go really deeper. So that's vertical. Horizontal is when you take an entire area and you study that entire area en masse, in depth, in greater perspective. That's a horizontal excavation. What happens in India is that already we have very less excavations happening. Already that's a big disadvantage. On top of it, primarily we focus only on vertical archaeology, not vertical excavations, not the horizontal ones. And in perspective of wars like the Mahabharata, so vast, covering huge areas of land, because in Mahabharata itself, we have this data that when two sets of warriors were fighting, their distance was nearly 30 kilometers. 30 kilometers, 30. So it's just not restricted to the Kurukshetra city. If somebody is that kind of an imagination, oh, the Kurukshetra city is so small, how could these many warriors fit in this small city and fight? No, it was not this small city. It was vast.
Wow.
So the entire horizontal archaeology has to be conducted. See, I'm giving my blood and sweat out to connect with the government, get the support we need, and we have all the data available with us. Where to research, how to research. So it takes time, but we are definitely hopeful the Lord will make it happen. We don't want the credit and name, but we want this to happen. We want that the excavation should happen. We want the history to come out. We want the Lord's glories to spread everywhere. Nobody should ever dare to call the Lord as imaginary mythology, Mahabharata as a lie. That should be that word has to be banned from dictionary. Mahabharata as mythology. And if anybody says this, please correct them. If in your circle somebody says, "Oh, Mahabharata is a mythology," so you're practicing Hindu mythology, is it? Just give them data. But so that's my recommendation to all of you, that please get this book. This book is one of the most comprehensive research books ever published, not only within ISKCON or the Vaishnava circles, it's ever in anywhere. So you must read this book. You must give it to your children. You must give it as gifts to people who want to understand real history. And of course, as I've shown in the screen, there's a lot of ways by which they could enhance their knowledge. We are available on website and email, so we are free to access. So in terms of Kurukshetra, to conclude, a lot of work is still to be done. And as I told you, 90% of ancient India is still not excavated. A lot of work is still to be done. But whatever available data is there, it has clearly indicated that there is potential of these sites to be excavated. Now, there is one interesting perspective to it. If you read chapter 11 of my book, in the section of archaeology, I have connected how Krishna used to be connected to the Indus Valley civilization. Now, Indus Valley civilization is very famous, right? Krishna used to go to one of these Indus Valley sites. Can you imagine? I have proven that. Connected some words from the Shastras and connected that with modern day archaeology and linked it and proven that, Krishna cannot be a recent person who was just imagined and created. He is, in fact, ancient, going back to thousands of years old.
Wow.
So a lot of work is done in this book. So, in the chapter of archaeology, I've shown how Pashupati worship. See, what is Pashupati worship? Pashupati worship is the worship of Lord Shiva in the form of Pashupati. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam has a very fascinating description of in chapter 34 of canto number 10, starting with the beginning verses. You will find that the Gopas, along with Nanda Maharaj, they're all going to the banks of the Saraswati River. Now, again, this is again a separate seminar. Hopefully, in the future, you all will be fascinated when you attend this seminar of connection of archaeology with Krishna, right? So, I'm just giving you a very brief overview of this. Okay, so on the banks of Saraswati, there was many of these Indus Valley civilization sites were on the banks of the river Saraswati. Of course, we should not call it Indus Valley civilization. We should call it as Sindhu Saraswati civilization, because these two were the primary rivers. So now, on the banks of these rivers, we had these sites like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and we know only these two, but there are actually hundreds and hundreds of sites like this. Lothal, Kalibangan, Rakhigarhi, many such sites. So one such site had, many sites had worship of Pashupati, which is depicted in the form of seals. We had Pashupati seals, square-shaped seals. And then we also had lingas, linga worship prominent in the Indus Valley civilization. Sindhu Saraswati civilization. And we also have something which the modern scholars call as the mother goddess, who was worshipped along with this person, Ambika.
Right.
Right?
Nice.
What Srimad Bhagavatam says is when Krishna went northwest, I mean, the Acharyas comment, like the Vishwanath Chakravarti, Thakur, Baldev Vidyabhushan, and all, they comment that Krishna actually went northwest on the banks of Saraswati. When you
Saraswati,
trace
yes.
northwest of Mathura, you get Saraswati River, and that is exactly the Indus Valley civilization which we study in our history textbooks. Right? On the banks of these rivers, we had Pashupati and this so-called mother goddess. And what Srimad Bhagavatam says, Krishna went to Ambikavana
Correct.
and worshipped Pashupati there on the banks of Saraswati. So can you see the connection?
Right.
Again, this is a complete seminar in itself. I connect the entire history and show very
Wow.
beautiful. I mean, it's fascinating. You know, what is there in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's connected, archaeologically provable.
Wow.
That's what we have in Bharat. Well, that's what we have. That's what we need to bring it out. Otherwise, it's not going to come out. If people don't sweat their blood out, they give their best and bring out this data, it's not going to come out on its own. It's not AI to come out, pop out on its own. Somebody has to work hard for it. And that's what our team is doing. We are giving our best shot to bring out all this historical data so that in future, somebody would find value from it, or even in the present, people will find value and they will get closer to Krishna and they will follow the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Their lives would improve. That's the entire intention behind doing this.
Thank you,
I
Prabhu.
hope that
And definitely. I was just thinking, you said there was what's a small smelting unit there? What did you tell about?
I think that place name I'm approximately remembering as Jogan Khera, if I remember correctly. So that has an ancient smelting sites right in the heart of Kurukshetra city.
So they would do that right after the war, is it? Because you said even that was about.
Yeah, you need smelting sites because that's where weapons will be produced. Metallic products will be produced. Now we don't even know exactly if that entire site was excavated or parts of it were excavated or the entire horizontally it was covered. We don't know. Whatever was found was 4,000 years old. You touch, you find, very ancient site. And of course, we have 5,000-year-old weapons found in India. Right? Not exactly in Kurukshetra, but further south.
Yes.
But there are evidences of weapons going back to 5,000 years old. So my point, what I'm building up the case is that much of India is still not excavated. When it comes out, entire world is up for shocks. The whole world is up for a shock. Dwarka is still not excavated. If you are in that euphoria that wow, Dwarka has already come out. No, Dwarka is only partly excavated. Much of it is still underwater.
Right.
So a lot of work to be done. So that's what we are dedicated for.
Very nice, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and energy. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Prabhu. Parima Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for this such a wonderful session. I have no words to say how nice it was. Prabhuji, I have this one experience that you said that in the Aryan theory that was introduced by the British, that the Aryans invaded India. I would like to state the unfortunate fact that even I was taught that in school in history. We actually bought that theory. I cannot even imagine how we could even teach it to children in the history textbooks. And that theory was seconded. It was advocated not only by the British but also by Jawaharlal Nehru in his book, The Discovery of India. I can't hear you, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, you're muted. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me now, Mataji?
Yes,
Yes.
Prabhuji.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. We have been taught all kind of nonsense and all kind of horrible things.
Yeah.
So we need to change the narrative.
Yes, we need to change our textbooks as well, and then the way it is presented to young children, the curriculum, etc. And I also have one humble suggestion: if the coordinators of this call and everybody else on this call kind of agrees to it, that we would really love to have more sessions from you. I would really appreciate that, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your wonderful service and association. Hare Krishna.
Sure,
Hare
we'll keep watching.
Thank you, Mataji. Prahladanand Prabhu. Prahladanand Prabhu, you're there?
Thank you, Red Mata. Danvat Pranam Prabhuji and Danvat to
Hare
everybody.
Krishna.
I totally agree with Parima Mataji saying that when I was in school, they told us there was a question in the exam, where did the Aryans come from? And they were saying they came from Middle East. All this nonsense, I understand, is like Hiranyakashipu, Aurangzeb, and these Britishers, they all came to ruin India. I don't know what is
Yes.
planned for Lord Krishna, that Aurangzeb has demolished so many temples and everything, all right? But although I'm staying in West, both my sons, I have trained from very childhood about Lord Krishna's, authenticity of our scriptures and everything. So, not all Western, residents of India, they are not misguided, all right? I'm very careful, nurturing about, this kind of thought pattern in our children that, all this nonsense which they have done over the years for Indian culture demolition, this is really very unfortunate for us. But because I'm born in India, Bharat Bhumitala Janma Hai Manushya, I'm trying to preserve that as much as I can, whatever little effort I can put. And thanks to you and your team that you are excavating all these beautiful correlations with the scriptures and archaeology like that. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for your realizations. Yes. So, any questions further? Dear devotees,
If
you want, you can go ahead.
anybody wants to study more, go deeper, I've also shared my personal number on chat. Feel free to connect with me anytime. And if any other questions, you
that's
can also
great,
put it on
Prabhu.
chat.
Yeah, that's great, Prabhu. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Prabhu. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, if anybody else has any questions, they can.
Yeah, so thank you, Prabhu, for sharing your number. So, devotees, any further questions or any doubts in this session? Or furthermore, generally also, I think about the scriptures. So, you can text to Prabhu as he has shared the number. So, Prabhuji, there are no more questions or hand raise. So, with your permission, we can end the session, Prabhu.
Sure. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, once again for giving us a very interesting session and very valuable also. And we want your association every week and more sessions we expect from you, and so all the devotees are also have the same desire. So with your permission, we can end the call here. Devotees, let's pay our obeisances to Prabhu. Vancha kalpatrupasya kripa sindhu bhaicha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavyo namo ananta koti Vaishnav ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Express Chakrapani Prabhuji ki jai. Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, dear devotees, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.